Hey everybody, I'm Aaron Simmons. This is Philosophy for Where We Find Ourselves, July 31st, 2020. We are in the middle of a series on the 7 deadly sins from a philosophical perspective, and today we're going to talk about wrath. Now, I want to start off by differentiating wrath from anger. Anger is often motivated by virtue. We ought to be angry at injustice. We ought to be angry at incompetent leadership. But the anger that we feel as a result of virtuous commitments does not mean that we then give in to wrath as the mode of response to that situation. I actually think that in order to think through anger, we've got to take seriously anger as intrinsic to the human condition, whereas wrath makes us something less than human. Maya Angelou was once asked by Dave Chappelle, actually, whether she was still angry about the death of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, her friends back during the Civil Rights Movement. And Maya Angelou's response was, "Of course I'm angry. That's what makes me human. But being angry," she said, "must never give rise to bitterness, because bitterness then becomes a kind of cancer that eats away at us from the inside." I think wrath is much more akin to bitterness. It's actually, I think, best understood as a kind of rage. Now, by rage, I'm thinking here of the Iliad by Homer. Why is it that the story begins focused on rage? Because the story is itself an account of how Achilles fails to be appropriately human. He lets his bitterness eat away at him such that he ends up then engaging with his neighbors, engaging with his friends, only in the mode of wrath, the mode of rage. What he does is no longer sees a human connection between him and his situation and all of those others. Anger, alternatively, assumes that the other person remains part of the human condition that is shared, even if we are angry at that other person. The anger is motivated by an assumption that they should know better than to do what they do. It's an assumption about shared virtue. Rage, wrath, bitterness, alternatively, erases that connection. Achilles has no vision for the future. Wrath eliminates futurity in that way. Wrath throws us into despair because we have so abandoned connection with others that we no longer have the opportunity to live forward into a future that hopefully will be such that our anger could be minimized, that we could restore a relationship. So how do we respond correctly to wrath? We don't let it get a foothold. We make sure that the bitterness that forms the soil for wrath ends up getting tilled such that we never allow it to stagnate and never allow it to fester and become dangerous. So even if I get angry, even if I feel slighted, even if I feel harmed in some way, my anger might be appropriate and it might motivate appropriate transformation in my social space, but I should not give in to the bitterness that then makes this violence for violence sake emerge as the rage controlling response. Wrath makes us less than human because it erases our connection and our solidarity with others. I hope this is helpful. I'll see you next time, unless a piano falls on our heads.